Good morning, I'm Brad Bumgardner. I'm interpreter over here at Pokagon State Park. And this morning we're looking at the toboggan that we have here at Pokagon State Park. More specifically, we're looking at the history of this unique toboggan. It's actually one of 3 toboggan slides that we have here in the Midwest. A lot of people say that ours is one of the most unique and special of all of them. And in the next 45 minutes or so, we'll look at the history that we have that surrounds our toboggan slide and some of the fun that's been going on out here for decades. And so join me as we heck out and up the toboggan track, and we'll take a look at the fun that people have had. The early beginnings of the toboggan track that we have here at Pokagon State Park goes back into the early 30s. They go to a group of boys that were here in the park in the 1930s into the early 1940s, specifically 1934 to 42 were the days of the CCC. The 3 C's stood for the Civilian Conservation Corps, and they were here in the park and they built a lot of the features that we see today. If you drive into the park, right away you see the large looming pine stands in the main gate. They were all put in by the CCC. A lot of the stone structures that we see, such as the spring shelter and the shelter that is named after them, were put in by them. But they were looking for kind of a fun activity to do on those winter days, and their camp was located up to where the present day nature center is. And they took one of the largest hills that we had here that we call a glacial came, and that's where all the sand and the silt's been deposited way up top there. And they started sledding one day, and they made the first toboggan slide. That was in 1935. It was a very rough looking slide at that time. It was just one track, and they would fly down through a multitude of different curves. It was very easy for them to just fly right off the track. And it was said by some of those CCC boys that if they came down the track and made it all the way to the end, there was a large curve. They could bank that curve, and if they missed 2 big oak trees, it was possible to slide right out into Lake James. Of course, today's track's been straightened out. We've added the 2 tracks to it, and they don't quite go that far as they used to go. And we don't need snow like they used to have. And what we'd find out from those CCC boys also is that if there was no snow on the ground, they would actually cut ice right out of the lake. And if you go out to Lake James, today it's frozen on there, 14 inches of ice, but not every winter that lake will freeze up, and oftentimes it's the last lake to do that, being one of the largest in the county. So what we find is they actually went out to Lake Lonadau, which is behind the Potawatomi Inn, and they would cut ice out of there and drag it and actually lay it into the track. Now, if you've been on the toboggan slide today, you'll notice that it's kind of a bumpy ride. It's not the smoothest ride, but imagine having all those blocks of ice actually laid into the track. Made for a real bumpy ride for those boys. But they went through a couple different types of towers. 35 was the first year they put it in. They added a little extension in 36. Finally, in 1937, they put a little taller tower in and started to add the second set of tracks that we have laid in here today. And it's just still laying ice in both of those tracks for quite a while if there wasn't enough snow. Hopefully there was enough snow. The ice that we have today runs it a little faster, and we'll take a look at that ice just a little farther down this track here. In the 1970s, we added our refrigeration system, which meant that we no longer depended on snow to be out here on the ground to be able to go tobogganing, which was great for business. We'd be able to open up every weekend. And what it uses is some pipes that run underneath the ground that have kind of a glycol, kind of an antifreeze solution that run underneath a layer of concrete here. Then all we have to do is, right when we first start the season, we just spray some water on the track, and it'll form this ice. Oftentimes just a 1/4 inch or so is all we need to get people tobogganing. The ice actually runs faster than the snow out here. And right now we're on the very end of the track, right where the ice ends. You can see where it ends, and it switches over to just plain concrete, which is to slow people down so they don't end up in the middle of the restaurant over there at the Potawatomi Inn. But as they come up here, this is called the catcher position. You'll see the employees standing on these little metal gratings right here. And the idea is some of the real heavy loads, you get 4 big guys out there, you can continue all the way down, and I've seen them come up within 15 feet of the end. But some of those lighter loads might need a little help getting up this last little hill. So that's what this spot's right here for. They'll help kind of grab them. You might have 2 employees, and just to stop them, so if they stop here, they don't slide back down there and go underneath that bridge. and it helps them unload as well. Right now, we are at the lowest point that you run on the toboggan run. If you go all the way up to the top of that tower there, to the right here, the lowest spot, this is 90 feet in elevation. Now, the refrigerated portion of this toboggan is about 1/4 of a mile long. If you add the extra extension and you can keep on flying off the track, you'll end up about 1,780 feet. That's 1/3 of a mile that you're flying down here. If you look at some of the old postcards, they'll say, visit to Pokagon toboggan slide with speeds up to 72 miles an hour. Now, how they figured that out in the 30s and 40s, we don't quite know, but it isn't quite that fast. In fact, we know how fast they're going today with the addition of that thing right there. And we purchased that this winter to use the toboggan slide. It's been a big hit. Now we have our speed limit of 35, but we regularly see speeds that go beyond that. And it's quite possible with a large load that you can hit speeds up to 40 to 45 miles an hour. But usually right in the 30 to 40 range is pretty typical for this point on the slide. If you go all the way back up top of that tower that we'll take a look at, it's 60 feet. And what I really like seeing about this is just the elevation changes. You can see all the dips and curves dips in the rises that we have in the track. That adds because of our glacial history that we have, not just here at Pokagon, but all of northeast Indiana. You have to go way back to the Ice Age, some 10, 14,000 years ago, that created this area. And as that ice moved in here, it deposited a lot of the sand and the silt that we have here today, and it receded, came back, deposited some more, and it created what I mentioned was that glacial came that our tower sits on, and then go back here to where we are right now, this lowland depression, as we end this toboggan slide. As you go back up the top here, this is what's called a glacial depression. And in fact, we call it a kettle hole depression. And that's where a large ice block kind of gets deposited in the ground. As it melts away, oftentimes what you have created is called a kettle hole lake. And a good example of that is our Lake Lonadale behind the Potawatomi Inn. It's a large ice block depression where if you go right off the pier there at Lake Lonadale, it drops down to 30 to 40 feet. This is another example of a kettle hole, but over the thousands of years, the water table has dropped down. As that water table has dropped down to its present day level, the water drained out and you're just left with the little depression that we have here. And it's right here that some tobogganers say that when they hit that last little dip and they're coming into here, they feel a little bit of air time, which for the roller coaster enthusiasts, that's our 0 G's or negative G's that they feel as they're going down the track. Right now, we're standing at a point about halfway across the toboggan slide. Up there's the top right here behind me. Then right there in front of me, I can see the end of the toboggan track as it sits down there at the bottom of the hill. Right here is a spot that you'll see employees that are walking around, and these guys are kind of picking up hats and gloves and stuff. They're flying down here almost 40 miles an hour. It's real easy. They have winter hats and gloves fly by. And what you'll also notice that isn't turned on right now, but we have one right over here, is a series of lights that the employees will watch for. And whenever you see a light on, it tells us there's a toboggan running down the track, because one of the biggest things that we look for is to have a perfect safety record. It's real easy to get hurt by a toboggan if you got hit by one, and oftentimes what will happen is if someone were on the track, a toboggan will come on by there and it's going to fly your feet right out and your head will hit the ground. We don't want that to happen, so we have a real good safety record against both employees and other people that are getting injured. So we won't release another toboggan until they're off the track down there. But right here where we're standing, also you can get a view of our chiller building, which actually runs the refrigeration that we have running underneath the track. And you can see our warming center that we'll walk up towards. And that was built, one of the last features, in 1985. There was a year where the toboggan slide was actually not open. They did a major renovation. The early refrigeration that we had in the 70s was real crude. It was kind of new at the time, and we were able to update that to a more modern system that we have today, where we don't have to constantly cut the ice off and put new ice on there. And that was a kind of a nightmare for those early employees. You know, one word, a couple words that they hated to hear was cut ice. If they heard that, they were cringing. Today, we don't have to cut ice quite as much. But when we added that warming center, it allowed for our rental room and then the concession stand that we have upstairs. Kind of brings about all the features that we have today out here for the toboggan slide. Right now, we're standing over here at our warming center. This is where we have our rental room. Upstairs, there's our concession center. Right now, on my watch, it is 10 till 10 a.m. That is opening time for the toboggan slide. We can see these large group of people right here that are waiting to go tobogganing. You guys ready to go tobogganing? Oh, they're all talking to themselves. Let's show you where they actually are going to get their toboggan slide, and we'll walk inside right over here. You guys ready to go tobogganing? Inside over here, they're going to come around the corner where they'll actually check them out. They'll leave their driver's license deposit, and they'll get their choice of one of 60 toboggans that we run out here over the course of 1 hour. Do any more than that, we can't guarantee everyone a ride in 1 hour. But we have newer toboggans that we have today than ones that we used to use. Here's a kind of an example, a little shorter one right here. We used to use wooden toboggans. Today we've moved to a plastic that works a lot better for us because we can repair all these in-house. So if a toboggan breaks, we can quickly get it fixed, and I'll show you a little behind the scenes of where we fix them. Right in this little room here. And we do all of our own repairs with some of the toboggan slides that might break. And oftentimes what we'll see is we have special runners on our toboggans here that'll wear down. This one looks pretty good. This one already got fixed. See if I can find one here that's been wearing down. There's a little wear on this one. And we're starting to see a little wear here, and this happens when people are actually going down the slide or when they're carrying them back. Because of the weight of them, we'll let them drag the toboggan, but we want them to drag it up here at the front. We don't want them to drag it in the back. Since it's already wearing down right here, we can easily take these off and get them fixed and have them back on the track in no time. And the other thing that broke, I just found, here's our old straps here. Sometimes they'll go off. And that's where we fix them.
And I created Toboggan. This is my second season here. I have the middle person job. What I do is I read the rules, and the rules here are no waving, no leaning from side to side or backwards. If anything falls off, such as your hat, let it fall, we'll get it for you, it's no big deal. What we do is we load people in. First person sits Indian style, and everybody behind them loads their feet in around them. Arms get held in, and we have a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
This is Mallory. This is Ed. They're both newbies this year.
Hi. We just stand here, help them load on, and then send them off. Make sure everybody's locked tight. Make sure our light switches are off so we know the bottom is clear, and then turn them on and send them down.
Yep, I get to turn the lights on when they're all reloaded and ready to go. Flip the lights on, let the person down at the end, there's a signal that lets them know that there's a sled coming down. And they will stand down there and they will watch to make sure that everyone gets off the track. If there's a problem or anything, they've got a radio. They also have a catcher's position down there also. They, if the sled doesn't make it up the last hill, our braking hill, they get out there and they catch the sled for them. That's sometimes a lot of fun, sometimes not so much fun. But they get to stand down there and they get to catch the sleds. Ed, what do you do?
I'll tell you what, we make sure that, you know, we have these people all locked in, like Nala said, and safety certainly is paramount. And what's so fun about working here is that everybody has such an upbeat attitude. It's just a real friendly environment, and nice people are out here. And as you can hear, you know, you just heard no throwing snowballs, and we want to make sure that everybody has a good time, but nobody gets hurt. That's why safety is so very, very important. That's why we make sure when we put people in toboggans, that they're locked in and they keep their arms down as we tell them. If they don't, then the signal down there, the signal reminds them to do that.
Great family fun. A lot of family fun.
Do you count them down?
Do we count them down?
Or you just push them out?
It is pushing.
They're like, you ready? Let's go. So a lot of people, it's a lot of people come as a family tradition. We've got families who've been here years, come every year. Earlier this season, we found a family, and they made their own sweatshirts. They had little tobogganers on them with all the rules on the back. That was pretty cool. So, yep,
About
it's a good time.
Do some people, is there rare cases where people rode all day?
Oh gosh, yeah, we'll have a lot of Amish come in, and they'll spend 4 hours here. They'll bring their whole communities in. A lot of families from generation to generations. They'll have 5 generations here, and they'll all be sledding.
Okay. Right now we're at the top of the toboggan tower. We're up to 30 feet that we climb the staircase. And of course we have 90 feet all the way down to the bottom here. And I'm sitting with one of the toboggan slides actually ready to go off. It's actually on the rollers and ready to shoot off the track. Today, if you go tobogganing, you rent them by the hour. and we charge $10, but it hasn't been always like that through the years. It used to be ride-style tickets that you would get. And I actually have the tickets right here. And the very first toboggan ride, you would pay 5 cents for a ticket, and it eventually got moved up to 25 cents, and it was that way all the way through the mid-1980s. And there's the toboggan tickets right there. They actually say Pokagon State Park toboggan slide right on them. And it was then after we did that major renovation in the mid-80s, we changed it over to an hourly rental. And it was first $4 and $6 and eventually $10 that we have here today, which is still a good fun. You can get as many runs as you can get in one whole hour. And we've had quite a few. Some of the Boy Scouts really get running that toboggan sled all the way back up here and get 12 to 16 runs in. And that's just amazing to get that many. More typical is probably 4 or 5 in an hour. And we've seen so much of the history of the toboggan slide, but now how about let's give you a ride. We're going to go down a toboggan slide and see how fast we can go. Make sure to watch for that speed limit sign and we'll see how fast we can get running down this toboggan slide. Let's go. Woohoo! Woo! Woohoo! Almost to the end. Here we go, here we go, here we go. Yes! Well, hope you enjoyed our little ride down toboggan slide. Now, of course, the job for you guys is to come on out there. We're open Thanksgiving all the way through the end of February. And remember, we don't need snow to run out there. And hopefully come on out there, see some of the employees and say hi. And of course, above all, is have fun while we're out here tobogganing at Pokagon State Park. Thanks for watching, everyone.